Welcome, AP Economics students. This is Ms. Foley. We are in day 3 of our Unit 11 Factor Markets. If you take a look at the announcements, there has been an update on the College Board advanced placement exams. I'm actually going to do a separate YouTube video, a separate presentation going over everything that I know at this point and when we're going to have updates. So if when you get a moment, please go and check out that other YouTube video so that you know where we are. You should have your guided notes out. We're going to be finishing up the Unit 11 guided notes today. In terms of your homework, just like usual, at the end of towards the end of a unit, you're going to be doing Section 13 summary, page 719 in the purple book. Those are the numbers for those of you who don't have a purple book. There is one on Google Classroom, so please feel free to take a look at that. Next class, we're going to be having a guide assessment. Obviously, it's going to be like an open note, open book guide assessment. It will be in the format of a Google form. So that's what you can expect for Block 2 kids. That's what you can expect on Wednesday. For Block 7 kids, that's what you can expect on Thursday. And then, we'll go over the whole calendar for online learning. Please take so our objectives is to finish 72 and 73. Please take a look at the question of the day. Please write this down. If you need to press pause on this video, press pause so that you can write down the question, come up with an answer. When you press play, we'll go back over the answer. Okay, so if you take a look at the question of the day, the question is, the explicit cost of land you do not own is equal to the correct answer is A, rental rate. When we talk about land, when we talk about capital, we use the word rental rate. When we talk about labor, the cost of labor, we often use wage. Okay, so just to kind of go back to our online learning schedule, here's where we are. If it is Block 2, today's the 23rd. If it's Block 7, today's the 24th. In terms of your homework, you have these 5 problems to do on page 719 in your purple book. Just like your Module 69 notes, you'll take a picture or you'll scan them in and you'll attach them to that assignment so that you can get credit for it. And then the only other thing you need to do is to prepare for your guide assessment. Your Quizlet modules 69 to 73 are available, and also your Unit 11 graded quiz is now available on College Board. Since I was able to, since we've gone over the last 3 days of work. Next class will be the guide assessment, and then the class after that will be the Unit 11 examination. Okay, so that's just kind of our calendar. Big thing that we're going to be looking at today, Module 72, is how do you know how much of each factor you should have when you put them together? So we're going to be taking a look at the optimal input mix, the cost minimization rule, and then we're going to be taking a look at marginal productivity theory. Why do different people get paid the same amount of money for the same job? That's an element that we're going to be looking at. It's popular on the AP exam, so that's what we're going to be taking a look at. Okay, so if you take a look at Module 72, 2 big things when you talk about input. So there's many ways that you can combine capital, that you can combine labor and land, and sometimes there's a situation where there are substitutes. So for example, there are 2 different factors from 2 different categories that can do the same work. So a example could be an ATM machine. An ATM machine is capital. If I need to get money, especially now, I'm going to use an ATM machine. It's a machine, I put in my card, I get money out. That's one way to get money. Another substitute of that is if you go through a drive-through or you go to the actual bank and a bank teller physically gives you money. So that is labor giving you money or capital giving you money. So both performing the same task, they're just from 2 different categories. Self-checkout could be the same thing. You can talk to a machine or you can talk to an actual person. So those are substitutes, 2 different factors that can do the same work. Your book also talks about Construction. If there's a caterpillar, which is a machine, and digs holes, that's capital doing work. An individual who is a construction worker digging holes, that can also be it. So sometimes we have a situation where things can be substitutes. Many times we have a situation where we can have complements. Okay, so in the situation with the caterpillar needs a driver to work, unless it's like an automatic caterpillar that like works on its own. That would be a complement. A truck driver and a truck. Those would be complements. Those are two factors that need each other to work together. So a lot of times when we discuss what input should we do, we use the words substitutes and complements to figure out, what's the best way for productivity. The most important combination to take a look at when you are combining two factors. How do you know if you have the optimal input mix? That is when you use the least cost combination of inputs. So this should not be confused with profit maximizing. If I wanted to know what's my profit maximizing of labor, I add my wage rate until the wage rate is equal to the marginal revenue product of labor, or if we're in perfect competition, the value of marginal product of labor. So this is not to be confused with that. We've been doing that on day 1 and day 2. This is something different. This is when you take them and you combine. This is the least cost combination of inputs, okay? And this is what this equation looks like. The marginal product of labor, so the physical amount of product that worker gives you over the wage rate, when that equals the marginal product of capital, a lot of times we use the letter K when talking about capital, just to not be confused, over the rental rate. When those two numbers equal each other, we have the cost minimization. Okay, so cost minimization, different from profit maximization. This is minimizing your cost by combining inputs. Okay, let's do an example. A firm produces its output using only capital and labor. Your labor costs $100 per workers per day, and your capital costs $200 per unit per day. If the marginal product of the last worker employed is 500 and the marginal product of the last unit of capital is 1,000, is the firm employing the cost minimization of outputs? Okay, so remember, we're going back to this rule, MPL, marginal product of labor over wage rate, should equal the marginal product of capital over rental rate. So in this situation, the labor is 500 marginal product. So the last unit of labor gives us 500. The cost per labor is 100. So 500 divided by 100 is 5. Now so here's our labor part of the equation. Here's our labor part of the equation. And now for capital, the last unit of capital gave us 1,000 units of product, divided by the last unit of capital cost was $200. So 1,000 over 200 gives you 5. Does 5 equal 5? Yes, every day. So when you set those two equal to each other and they actually equal, you can say in the question, yes, the firm is employing the cost minimization combination of outputs because they're equal to each other. They both equal 5. That means that is a cost minimization. Okay, so that's the bulk of Module 72. Let's take a look at some questions about Module 72. So these are just from the Check Your Understanding. You can write these in a notebook. Usually we have these printed out in school, but these are at the end of Module 72. Here are those questions. If you could do me a favor and take a look at these 3, maybe see if you can come up with the answers by yourself. You can press pause, and then when you press play, we'll go over it. Okay, let's go over it. Number 1, an automobile factory employs either assembly line workers or robotic arms to produce automobile engines. In this case, labor and capital are considered, if you got C, substitutes. Good job. You are correct. That's two different factors doing the same task, and the owner of the firm needs to decide what would be better. Number two, if an increase in the amount of capital employed by a firm leads to an increase in the marginal product of labor, labor and capital are considered, you guessed it, they are complements, okay? They work together because if you have more capital and that means that labor is better, it's just like, okay, I bought more ovens and now my pizza workers are more productive because there's more ovens there. They are complements. They work together, okay? Number three, if the marginal product of labor per dollar is greater than the marginal product of capital per dollar, which of the following is true? The firm should, the correct answer is hire more labor, okay? That means that they need to hire more labor so that they can get closer to that cost minimization, to that equal point, okay? Let's look at these two questions. If you need a moment, please press pause on the video and see if you can work these out by yourselves. Okay, let's go through them together. The cost minimization rule states that costs are minimized when A, the marginal product per dollar is equal for all factors. That's exactly the rule that we just went over. A firm currently produces its desired level of output. Its marginal product of labor is 400. Its marginal product of capital is 1,000. The wage rate is $20 and the rental rate is $100. In this case, the D, employ less capital and more labor. That's pretty much because in this situation, we have 20 for labor. In this situation, for capital, we have 10. We need to get those numbers closer together. So less capital and more labor. Okay, excellent. Okay, so Module 73 is all about the marginal productivity theory of income. We know that the definition of this term essentially means that when you divide the factors, you get a lot of productivity out of labor. We can use that same concept to identify why maybe in labor, people doing the same job could get compensated differently, okay? So Module 73 talks about this thing called compensating differentials, okay? You could be doing the same job, but because it's slightly different, get paid differently. So for example, let's say that you're a cashier. Thank goodness about the cashiers, by the way. Shout out to all the workers that are keeping society to keep going. But let's say that you're a cashier. If you're a cashier working days and working nights, the person who's working nights is going to get paid more than the cashier that is working days. So even though it's the same job, the person working nights might get paid a little bit more because the night shift is a little harsher on your body, right? It's a little less convenient. You might have to deal with childcare, that sort of thing. So there might be little things about the job that make it so you get paid more just because of that little difference. So days versus nights. That could be a reason why you get paid differently. Of course, there could be a situation in talent, okay? Not all basketball players are paid the same. Not all NFL quarterbacks are paid the same. If you are more talented, you're a more talented athlete, even though all the quarterbacks in the NFL, they do the same job, but they all get paid differently because they all have different talents, okay? NBA players, there's all people that play basketball, put the ball in the hoop, but they all get paid differently because they have different talents. When you go to a restaurant, there's chefs all over the world that make wonderful food, However, they get paid differently because they are different talents, okay? Different accountants, some get paid differently because some are better than others. They're more talented, okay? So talent is a reason why people who do the same job get paid differently. Compensating differentials, people do the same job, but there's a slight difference that has them get paid differently. Differences in human capital, okay? What you're taking a look at right over here on the right, this is a basic teacher salary guide. Teachers at Morris Knolls, at Morris Hills, and throughout New Jersey and throughout the country, they get paid differently based on their human capital. Okay, if you take a look here, so if you are a first-year teacher, the steps are how many years have you been a teacher, essentially, and over here to the right is how much education you have. So if you are, a first-year teacher with a bachelor's degree in this school district, this is in our school district, you're making $51,000 a year, for $51,565. However, if you have more experience, let's say that you've been there for 10 years and you have a bachelor's degree, you're going to get paid $60,170. Let's say that you've been there for 15 years and you also have your master's plus 30. Okay, we're going to pay you $74,360. Let's say that you've been been there for 21 years and you have a PhD. You're going to get paid $94,985. So this shows the difference that obviously the teacher with the PhD and 21 years of experience is probably a lot different of a teacher than the teacher that is, a first-year teacher with the bachelor's degree. That's how school districts compensate teachers, okay? How much human capital do you have? How much experience do you have? And how much education do you have? The more educated, the more skills you are, that's going to be the difference in your pay. So everybody's a teacher at Morris Knolls. Everybody gets up, does their online learning, has their lessons, uses Aspen, shows up, at the same time, blah, blah, blah. But they get paid differently because of their human capital. And this just isn't in teaching. This could be in big pharma. This happens in finance. This happens in all different industries, okay? So differences in human capital, that might be a reason why you get paid differently. So here in this chart here, we can see the difference between having a college degree, the difference between having a high school degree on your annual median learnings. Okay. The other sources of wage inequality in this situation here, as you can see, in some situations, and this might be something that when we do our final project, you might be interested in, depending on your ethnic background, gender, race. Unfortunately, it is a situation that, in some cases holds true, but discrimination could be a reason why you get paid differently. So that's why we have other sources of wage inequality. We have a situation where in some situations, people might get paid differently because of their market power. If you have a union that represents workers in your industry, you're probably going to get compensated more money and benefits versus somebody that is not part of a union. Okay, so for example, many teachers are part of the teachers union. Many state workers, law enforcement, they have their own unions. Different industries have their own unions. They work together to get employees better, collectively bargain to get them more money, to get them, more benefits, compensated and fairly. And this is, if you're a U.S. History 2 person, that kind of goes back to the Progressive era. So what we're saying here is that people that are generally represented by unions get compensated more than people that aren't. There's a situation called efficiency wages. Depending on your line of work, maybe you sell cars. And if you sell cars, you are going to get paid depending on how many cars you sell. So there might be 2 or 3 car salespeople in a store, but they're all going to get paid differently depending on who hustles more, who makes more sales. That's efficiency wages. And like I said before, there is this idea of discrimination. There are laws, obviously, and regulations that say that this shouldn't exist, but there are some studies that say that, it possibly does in some theories. Again, this might be reasons why people get paid differently. Okay, if we look at the free response question, for each of the following situations in which similar workers are paid different wages, provide the most likely reason for the difference and explain why the reason applies. So again, usually I have this printed out in a unit packet. We don't have a unit packet, but we do have our textbook. So if you open up your textbook and you look for your check your understanding, you can put this in your notes, in your guided notes. Test pilots for new jet aircraft earn higher wages than airline pilots. You can pause and figure out why might those people get paid differently. Okay, so this is an example of compensating differentials. Being a test pilot is something that is more dangerous than an airline pilot. If you are working in an area that is more dangerous, yeah, you're both pilots, you both fly planes, but maybe flying a jet pilot that needs to be tested out and never flown before is a lot more dangerous than an airline pilot with a plane that has been tested and works well and is safe, okay? So compensating differentials, day versus night, more safe versus less safe, more harsher area, than a not harsher area. Those are things that could be considered compensating differentials. How about college graduates who have higher earnings in their first year on the job than workers without college degrees in their first year on the job? They get paid differently because there's differences in human capital. The college graduates have more education, they have more training. That's what makes them more productive. And then finally, experienced AP teachers, maybe like me, maybe not, who knows, command higher salaries than new AP teachers for teaching the same class. This is also human capital, more on-the-job experience, especially people who have more, involvement with the test, more experience with the test, who have seen it, they are going to have more marginal product than experienced teachers. And that's why generally in teaching in school districts, you see that that salary guide that I showed you, okay? So those are reasons. These are things that very popular for multiple choice questions, by the way, where they'd give you an example and you'd need to say, is this compensating differentials? Is this human capital? Is this differences in talent? Is this just straight up discrimination? So that might be something that you would definitely see on like a guide assessment, on the Unit 11 exam, and then your AP exam when you take that, okay? So just to recap, I'm gonna go back to our calendar. So today, what you need to do is to look at section 13, the summary in the purple book, those 5 problems. You can just write them out on a loose leaf sheet of paper and then either scan them in or take a picture and submit it to Google Classroom. Prepare for your guide assessment. You should be doing your modules 69 to 73. I just finished grading the modules and I'll be posting them today from Unit 10. Some of you dropped the ball on those. We need to get better at that. Remember, you are using the Learn and the Test feature on the Quizlet, so get that going. And then as of today, the Unit 11 graded quiz is available. It is not going to be due until the day of the exam, but it's definitely some good practice for your guide assessment. Next class, you can expect your guide assessment. Also, you will see a post from me about what I've learned over the weekend about the AP exam. So I'm just finishing up that YouTube video, and then I will submit that for you. As always, I miss you. It's weird. It's kind of awkward just sitting in my dining room with my dog that I have to keep from not barking instead of being with you guys. But I hope that you're well. I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're healthy. And again, if you have any good recommendations about things on Netflix, Hulu, Prime, or anything that I should be watching, please let us know. Okay? Hope that you have a great day and see you soon.